Oh, good. I am all but a vibe this morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Medicare Cafe Lack of Sleep Edition. You're joined by your hosts. My name is Olivia Richardson.
And I'm Chalen Jackson.
And we're doing our best with the who. Okay, I know this is a topic. It's so overplayed. About some mechanic, and then about some magician, comedian. Every comedian's talked about this. It's on everybody. Who keeps agreeing to daylight savings time? Who looks at this and says, yes, let's just mess up every child for the next 8 weeks and then we'll do it all over again? Yeah. Tradition. It is tradition.
At this point, that's the only excuse I can come up with.
Guys, welcome. Fun episode for you guys today. We're really excited to talk. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about, we're all going to have fun is what we're going to do. Some of us will be talking, some of us will be praying silently. We're going to be talking about fact finding like a boss. We're going to be talking about, we've talked a lot about like what's the 8-step selling process, what should you be learning about your clients. We're talking a lot about like what you should be doing right now to prep for AEP. We've covered all of those stuff. I want to get down to some true sales training. I want to get down to some true, what can we be doing that we can start implementing this afternoon and see more revenue per appointment. And so I think where we've talked about when we've done the 8-step selling process, we've done all that stuff, the number one place where cross-selling or appropriate selling, true advising, I'm going to just eliminate the word selling because it's not selling. The one place where true advising happens and is completely overlooked is going to be fact finding.
Yep.
Those individuals that feel very uncomfortable, and I understand it. It's a mind shift switch. If you feel really uncomfortable with asking for additional product lines, or not every single one of your clients have been asked about cancer insurance, final expense, hospital indemnity, even your MedSup clients, dental, vision, hearing. If you have not talked to every single one of your clients about one of these products, you're not fact finding appropriately.
Agreed.
Okay. So what we're going to do with this note, and I have some other things I wanted to talk about, but my goodness, I'll get to it at the end. I had some not psychological, physiological. Is that the one where you're thinking like big picture?
No, that would be closer to psychological than physiological.
What's the one? A philosophy.
Oh, philosophical.
Philosophical. Ooh, that's a hard one. Philosophically. I've been feeling that way about some things. My kid's gotten into some video games lately, and I'm just like, man, like, what good life lessons? And I'm being so serious. Not like the weird mom, like, I don't want you playing video games, it'll rot your brain. Like, I learned some really deep things from my video game strategy versus my son's video game strategy. Yeah. Remind me at the end of this, and we'll come back to that. I really wanted to get that in the pre-chat, but video games. But life got in the way. Life found a way, and it got in the way. Right now, let's get into how to fact find like a boss. So I actually have it broken down. What should good fact finding do? What should the goal of your fact finding be? The first is obvious. It is, what information do you need to see if somebody needs to be on a Medicare supplement plan or a Medicare Advantage plan? You need to know like health underwriting. Do you think they'd be able to pass under? Like there's like the traditional, what information do you need to have in order to fill out an application? Mm-hmm. So that's an obvious
demographic info, doctors, drugs, all the stuff.
Yes. What do you need to appropriately prescribe a Medicare supplement or a Medicare Advantage plan? The other three, though, are probably less common or less thought about what good fact finding should be doing. Number one, we've already talked about it, but fact finding needs to absolutely set the pathway to cross-selling. What fact finding does, it sets the expectation so that when you're bringing up additional products, it's not coming out of left field. When you're bringing up additional products, you are simply prescribing a solution based on their level of risk. And that's what it is, but you don't know that until you figure out their level of risk. Fact finding does that.
You can't solve a problem they don't think they have, and good fact-finding uncovers those problems.
Exactly. Or it's education. Fact-finding educates. The third thing that good fact-finding should do, number three, is it needs to build the relationship. Good fact-finding sets a strong foundation of that relationship, because it makes them, I would say, the more that a person talks, or the more
Sure.
that the person feels engaged in conversation, the more that they feel like they like that person, because people enjoy talking about themselves. People enjoy that part of the relationship. So if you fact find appropriately, that person becomes very comfortable with you, and they feel very, that really is the foundation of a good relationship, especially if it's a brand new to your client.
Yep. I mean, take the Dale Carnegie approach. I mean, if you're going to run a 1 hour appointment, I want you saying that client's first name 7 times minimum
Oh my gosh, that's so true. Yeah,
in
people
that
love their
appointment.
names.
And really, like, if you're going to have a 60-minute appointment, you better be getting 60 questions answered.
That's such a great point. Now, another good thing, speaking of like your name, this is just a side comment. What I think is so cool is we always need to be asking yourself, if you're a face-to-face appointment or even like a
Yep.
virtual appointment, what is that person leaving with? A lot of agents have done this new process where they will have like folders, and they'll give their client, because everything that they're buying is a concept.
Yep.
There's nothing physical other than a copy of an app or a policy, and those don't even exist anymore because they're all e-apps. So for somebody to leave with a physical thing makes them feel much more assured about their purchase, because they are purchasing something. So if you have a folder that you are putting like policy information, your contact information, things like that, put their name very big on that
Yeah.
folder. People to see their name, their eyes are drawn to it much more. Or like a follow-up appointment card, if you're writing out like your appointment card for their next appointment, make their name huge on that. They won't throw it away, and it draws their eye very quickly, because people love
Yep.
to see their name.
Spend the money, get some nice branded folders.
Yeah.
If you're seeing a lot of folks face to face, or even if you're not, if you want to mail those out, I mean,
It's
they're
worth
really
it.
not that expensive.
Mm-hmm.
You look at acquisition cost of a new client, anywhere between say $100 and $200, depending on how you're acquiring them.
Mm-hmm.
Spending another $3 on a branded folder is not going to make or break that process.
Absolutely. But again, just people seeing their name, they're
Absolutely.
not going to get rid of that. The fourth and final thing that a good fact-finding system can do is basically in conjunction with building the relationship, it's instilling confidence in that agent. It is so easy if people are talking about their experience buying insurance, which like they do, like that's what they're. I was literally the other day, we had to make an early trip somewhere. My husband, my family, and I, we were just running through into a McDonald's. The drive-through line was insane. We were just gonna go in. And I kid you not, we were there. It was like 7:30. I kid you not, there was an entire table of everybody with gray and blue hair.
Absolutely.
And the questions, the things that they were talking about was their Medicare, things that they were doing. So when people are sharing those experiences and talking about their experience, if somebody will talk like, these are the questions they asked me. They were very thorough. They know everything about me. It's so easy for that person to say, oh, my agent, if another person says my agent didn't ask me that, my agent didn't discuss that with me, that agent's out, the thorough agent is in.
Yeah.
So being thorough absolutely builds that relationships. You're going to get more referrals, and the confidence that your clients will have in your suggestions or your prescriptions, basically their plan, they're going to feel a lot more confident in that choice.
Absolutely. And I think, the biggest thing is be prepared to use the information you're gathering. If you ask all these great questions and do a proper fact find, but then don't follow through with those product recommendations, follow through with the information
Yeah.
the client needs, then the client's going to walk away going, why'd they ask me all that?
Yeah, that seemed
So
really
you've
too much.
got to follow through on it. Otherwise, they're going to lose confidence in your abilities. They're going to wonder if you are really, understanding the situation
Yeah.
as well. If you asked all that and you still only present core products, what
Yeah.
was the point?
Yeah, it does kind of instill doubt in all of that. Wasting time
Absolutely.
and instills that doubt. Again, what good fact finding should do, good fact finding sets the tone of the appointment, and it sets the expectations that you're there as a full advisor, and that you're not going to be just talking about a Medicare supplement or a Medicare Advantage plan. So that's ultimately what fact finding will do. So when it comes to fact finding, I'm sure there are more methods than this. If I boil the fat off of it, if I make it as simple as possible, I think that there are primarily just two main methods of fact finding. One is called the form, in our words. There's not like a real term. This is
Sure.
what we're calling it today.
Yeah.
It's a form, or there is the conversation method. Neither one is wrong. But I would suggest that you do is you find something, stick with it, try it out, try some transitions, and then if it doesn't work, make adjustments. If you're still finding that you're not feeling comfortable with the cross-sell process, then you probably need to adjust this portion of the fact finding. And I didn't mention this because I am just rolling on a prayer this morning. That is my real phone number. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, threats, or promises, you can absolutely put them in the live chat feature over here or shoot me a text message. Even if you're just watching the recorded version of this, shoot me a text message.
Yep.
More than happy to answer those questions for you. Let's get into it, all right?
Okay.
So the two methods that I have is going to be the form. So what do I mean by the form? What the form is, in the cases that I've seen it be most successful, is that every single time, doesn't matter if it's a new client or returning client, doesn't matter. It works for agencies who run their offices like a doctor's office. It doesn't matter if you're face-to-face. It doesn't matter if you are virtual. If you are face-to-face, you have basically like a waiting room style in your office or a location where they are separate from you, where they're filling out this form every single time. Now, you can have some of the form pre-filled and just ask them to confirm that it's correct, things like their Medicare number, date of birth, Part A effective date, Part B effective date. But the second half of the form needs to be refilled out every time that client's in office. And the second half of the form is asking them questions based on their comfort of risk. So there's things on there that one of the most successful ones that I've seen is ones that they had like 5 or 10 additional questions. And it said, rank your comfort level or rank your feeling of preparedness on a scale of 1 to 5. 1, you're not prepared at all. 5, you have a plan in place. What is your plans, or how confident are you if you are diagnosed with cancer to pay for the non-medical costs of cancer? Where are you at with your estate planning? How are you going to recover outside of the hospital? What this one was, it was actually a farmer. They did a bunch of crop insurance. So one of the questions they asked there is, what are your plans to pay for nursing homes so you don't have to get rid of your farmland? Because as we know, nursing homes immediately try to put everybody on Medicaid. And a lot of farmers will lose the farm quite literally because they end up in the nursing home. So they're asking these questions. Now, they're not asking questions like, do you want cancer insurance? Do you want a long-term care plan? Do you need an annuity for retirement planning? They're not asking questions. They're asking questions of, what is that thing protecting against? Do you have a plan for that protection? So what that does is once you fill out the form, there's a ton of other questions on there. You can ask them health questions. You can ask things like that. But once you go through that form, then you go through them with that on the appointment. So, Chalen, I noticed that you ranked that you were about a 3 on a scale of 1 to 5, 3. So let me give you a little bit of information. Let's talk about, why people might rate themselves a 1, people might rate themselves a 5. You're doing that every single time they're in an appointment with you, because I don't care if your appointment's 6 months apart or a year apart, something has changed. And in that time frame, and that 5, it may now be a 1. They might have seen somebody get diagnosed with cancer. They might have had a scare themselves. Something might have happened in that period where you have not met with them that their ranking will look different.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of agents miss that follow-up, that every time a client's in front of them, they assume a client is going to know what's important enough to tell their agent. And I think that's a really foolhardy way to go about it, because clients don't necessarily know what's important. They don't necessarily, they may not even be comfortable. They may be embarrassed or ashamed or concerned, and they're not sure how to bring it up. Your job as an agent is to bring that information out of them so you can give them the help they need.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Now, if you are in a virtual appointment, that's one that you can actually send to them ahead of time, instruct them to fill out. You can even make like an editable PDF in a lot of cases, instruct them to fill out and give it back to you. But the biggest thing is that I think, Chalen, you hit the nail on the head earlier. You have to do something with that information. If you're asking questions about the unexpected cost of cancer, if you're asking questions about paying for your nursing home insurance, but you don't bring anything up, then you just instilled a bunch of concern without presenting a solution.
Absolutely.
So if you're not willing to do that, then don't do this method. Reason why I like this method, 1, it sets the tone for the appointment. It sets the follow. Oh, I feel air conditioning. Do you feel that? It's so hot in here. Oh my God. We're in Missouri and today is going to be like 86 degrees. And our building is just like, why are you doing this? And it's like, building, it's hot outside. Please keep up. Anyways, sorry. So one of it sets the tone. It sets the expectations. Yes. I love that it also sets kind of like an air of like professionalism.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
And people expect it. Like, people know when they're a returning client of yours, they know exactly what to expect in an appointment, and it makes them a really easy, repeatable process. It makes you, it really allows you to stick to a script in your appointments.
Well, and it adds an inherent level of confidence for you as an agent. So
Yeah.
especially if you're a newer agent, like been there, done that, it can be super uncomfortable if you're a brand new agent just starting out, and all of a sudden you find out you're talking to someone with millions of dollars in
Oh
assets.
my gosh, yeah.
Like, man, talk about confidence. You've gotta
Yeah.
be able to kind of keep your cool, and having that system, having that sheet of paper in front of you, you don't have to worry as much about getting flustered and not knowing what the next question is because
Yeah.
it's right
You're
there
just
in front
following
of
a
you.
script, and it's
That's all you're
information
doing.
that they were happy to provide to you.
Of course.
I also, what I like about the form method, except for people who maybe have some PTSD about high pressure sales, you know what I mean,
Sure,
who really
sure.
don't want to be like that. You know, maybe you went and got your insurance license by working with another organization that was very into high pressure sales. You were so turned off by that. This is a method that is absolutely low pressure, no pressure, because it's not you asking these questions. It's not you even having a face-to-face conversation whenever they're filling out the form. It's them doing it on their own and their privacy. You're there to answer questions if you need to be, if it's like a waiting room or a pre-appointment situation.
Yep.
But what it allows them to do is actually get to sit down and actually have this thought process, like, you know, do I have a plan like for
Mhm.
nursing home? What do you mean? Am I supposed to have a plan for nursing home? I thought Medicare
Yep.
covered that. So it allows you to be able to bring up these conversations in a really low pressure situation because you're kind of allowing your client to feel like they're in the driver's seat. Like they're not because they're filling out information that you asked for, but they feel like they're in the driver's seat because you guys are responding to questions they answered on their own. So I'm a big fan of the form method, making sure that you have a good CRM, that you can keep that form in, that you
Mhm.
keep those answers in. They change over time. If it's a returning client, even bringing out that other form, be like, hey, this answer has changed a little bit. Tell me what's going on. The form is never good on its own. Following up with asking their reasoning for that. So if they're saying like cancer is a number 1 to them, ask them questions, or sorry, they're saying cancer is a 5 to them. They're very confident. Like an agent, maybe a less experienced agent would say, oh, you rated yourself as a 5 on the preparedness level of cancer insurance or of cancer. Okay, I'll just skip that one, move on. But to be able to ask follow-up questions about, okay, so let's talk about your plans, because oftentimes they're completely misguided,
Yep.
completely misled, or you find out, hey, like the solution doesn't always have to be insurance,
Mhm.
but there does need to be a solution, and it seems like you have one in place. Again, taking care of your clients holistically. I'll say it like this. I always pick on my mechanic.
Oh yeah.
If I go to my mechanic and they're doing an oil or they're checking on something and I say, hey, you don't need to do that. We already took care of that. And it's like a really significant thing. And they look at me and I obviously don't know anything about, not obviously, International Women's Month. Woo! I will tell them firsthand I know nothing about cars. If I say I know nothing about cars, but I know I don't need to get that taken care of, they're probably going to ask some follow-up questions because they know that they're liable for anything that goes wrong with my car after
Sure.
they work on my car. So they're going to make sure, like, I'm not the expert they are. They're going to ask those follow-up questions. Make sure us as insurance agents are doing the same thing. So, any final thoughts on the form?
Not really. I think it's all about confidence. If
Mhm.
we're going to talk about the conversation style in a minute, I'm sure, but
Mhm.
this is if you're not used to having a formal fact finding process, start with the form.
Yeah.
That can be easily converted into a more conversational style down the
Mhm.
road,
Mhm.
but you have to develop the habit of asking every single question, and the form makes it really hard. Like it's going to stare you in the face. It's going to be really hard to, like, if you're sitting there across the table from your client's going to know if you skipped a question.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're going to see that blank spot on the form,
Yeah.
and it's going to hold you a little bit accountable to your process.
That's such a great point. It's going to hold you accountable for asking those questions, which we should be. Again, our job is to advise people on
Yep.
financing their health care. Medicare finances some of their health care, but not all of it. So why are we stopping the conversation at Medicare?
Absolutely.
The second fact-finding method that I really like is going to be the open or the conversation fact-finding method. And my biggest point where you're going to do the conversations, you need to be good at 2 things. You need to be good at asking open-ended questions.
Yeah.
There are no yes or no questions in fact-finding. Every question needs to elicit a story. You need to be really good at that, and you really need to be really good about tracking what questions you're asking and maintaining control of the appointment, right? Because if you ask a question about, for example, an open-ended question would be things like, Chalen, what are your plans if something happens to you and you need to recover outside of the hospital. We know that hospital stays are getting shorter and shorter.
Mhm.
People are no longer recovering there. So what plans do you have to recover outside of the hospital?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I'm asking that question because I'm wanting to see if he's interested in a short-term care plan or like a home health care policy.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, these people will start going down stories about my kids are going to take care of me, my husband, my wife, and you're having to do some education in that process. You might get some cases where you'll get a client to completely take over the appointment and give you a 45-minute story about Aunt Myrtle and her dog who she did
Yeah.
something and ended up being the bearded lady at a circus. You don't know where Myrtle's going to take the conversation, but you have to be able to, if you're going to use the conversation method, it's great because it elicits emotion, getting people to talk, getting people to have emotion. A sales is a transfer of emotions. So if people can be emotional in a positive way in the appointment, that's going to help you in the sales process. It's positive in that sense. It's negative in the sense of you have to be very good at controlling the conversation and steering it in a way to where it keeps you on track with your appointment.
Absolutely. I was jotting something down. I think there's a couple like key directional phrases that you can use
Mhm.
during this conversational style. If you're not quite getting what you want, or if you feel like you need more information, there's always, tell me more about
Mhm.
whatever.
Mhm.
Or I think a really good one, if you need to kind of redirect the conversation, if they're getting into that long story about Aunt Myrtle, I think it's really easy to just pop in and say, hey, you mentioned
Mhm.
X.
Yeah.
Let's go back to that.
It takes a little bit more of an
Redirecting.
experienced
It
agent
does.
to do that.
It does. But that ability to redirect is the most key part of that conversational style of fact finding, because without it, it's just a runaway train.
It is. And again, it's always scary to give up that control, to make it a two-way conversation, but that's what you're doing when you're advising is you're asking those questions,
Mhm.
getting the information. The conversation allows them to be much more involved in the decision. Like when it's a conversation, you're not having to pry out information most of the time, not every time, but most of the time they're so willing and so much more invested in finding
Yep.
the solution because they're pouring their guts about a problem that they didn't even know they had yet, which is again another way of saying they're getting the emotions involved,
Mhm.
which ultimately is going to help you with those sales. So it is good. Some example again, you do have to be good at transitions, which is another way of saying you need to know how to manage that conversation, asking things in a way that don't seem out of left field. So
Yeah.
always connecting it to why they're there. Always reminding them, hey, I'm going to be asking you these questions, but it's because I'm going to help you finance healthcare.
Yeah.
So much goes into our healthcare. Some of them are very obvious, some of them less obvious. So I just want to make sure we have a really holistic conversation about what your plans are in financing your healthcare.
Yeah, and I think it can be really easy to the way I see it on a lot of the form type fact finders, that I think they probably create some missteps for agents that are less experienced, is they segment the questions out based on whether it's the type of coverage
Mm-hmm.
or like the segment of someone's, we see like the house with the rooms
Yeah,
or
yeah,
the pie
yeah.
chart, and I think that can make it a little awkward at times if you're not really good at the transitions, going from I'm going to collect all this Medicare information, now let's talk about your finances.
Yeah.
Like that can be a transition that's a little harder for people to
Mm-hmm.
manage.
Mm-hmm.
So I think especially if you're comfortable with the conversational style, it can be easier to go through like segments of life. Like if you're
Yeah.
sitting down with a T65, it's really easy to talk about, well, let's talk about your current employer or your former
Mm-hmm.
employer.
Mm-hmm.
And
What
then
did you
you're
used
getting
to
health
have?
information, you're getting 401k information, financial details. You're talking about it as a phase of life rather than like, let's do your medical, let's do your financial, let's do your estate planning. And
Yeah.
it can be easier to go through to that kind of phase of life mindset rather than segmenting out. It can feel like you're segmenting out product types to the client if you're not careful.
I think that's a really great point. And a lot of that can be like seen through
Mhm.
of like it doesn't seem as
Yeah.
authentic that you're asking me these questions, especially for maybe more of your skeptic clients. Because
Absolutely.
insurance agents don't have a great rep
Sure.
overall. I mean, like the media is happy to talk about
Mhm.
Medicare agents in particular and what we're doing and all that things. And we're seeing an improvement of that. But you have to understand that especially if they're not somebody that's a referral, if there's somebody that answered a lead or if there's somebody that doesn't have a prior relationship with you or any of your clients, there is going to be a bit of a trust barrier there.
Yep.
And so they might be more skeptic of why you're asking certain questions. But I think I have a tip for that too. Whenever
Go
I
for it.
finish out this segment, the thing I would say with the conversation fact finding, the conversational fact finding can kind of muddy an 8-step selling process. Because in
Sure.
the 8-step selling process, you have a fact finding and then you transition into education. Conversational fact finding, I think, combines
It
those
does.
two
Yeah.
because you're educating them about a risk at the same time you're managing where they're at, how comfortable they are with risk. So it seems very conversational and it seems
Sure.
much more of an enjoyable thing, less segmented compared to like you said, maybe the form one does. But it's also can be really difficult to kind of keep track
Yeah.
and to not spend 5 hours talking about short term care insurance when you haven't even
Yeah.
gotten to mention the difference between a Medicare supplement and a Medicare Advantage plan. I think what agents do that will shoot themselves in the foot every single time is we spend all of our resources explaining Medicare versus spending all of our resources where Medicare falls short. And I
Yeah.
think we need to do a better job of focusing on what part of their financing their health care will our clients actually interact with. A Medicare 101 does not tell them what part of part of their finances they're going to interact with.
Yeah. I know. Absolutely. I think it's if you don't even know for sure whether someone's going to be going down the med sub or the MA route, like what part A covers is not super relevant
Right.
to almost anyone,
Yeah.
frankly.
Yeah.
Like even if you have a med sup, part A coverage is not super relevant because they're going to have coverage for a lot of those out of pocket
For sure.
costs
For sure.
that you're going to cover during the med sup presentation. If they're in an MA plan, part A coverage is super irrelevant because it's going to fall under the terms of their MA plan. So it's not that Medicare 101 can't be important, but that's like if you're doing good marketing, good advertising, a lot of that is handled before someone ever walks in the door.
So true.
You know,
so
you should
true.
be marketing based on some of those basics. You should be having, content on your website that explains some of those basics. Like, no one should not understand that Medicare has, parts A, B, C, and D that you will be discussing before they walk in your door.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's an excellent point. And I think we don't need to build Medicare experts. We need to build people who are confident in their agent and
Yep.
confident what their agent gave them. So great point. Now, either way, again, with this, the education portion, like I mentioned, it's a little bit more cloudy. And where does the fact finding stop, and education begin on the conversation method of this? I just want to give you a couple example questions, open-ended questions. Again, the answer is never yes or no. You want to get them talking. You want to ask these open-ended questions. So it's what plans do you have to pay for a cancer diagnosis? Oftentimes, people, when you ask that question, they'll give you an answer. A lot of times people will be click on it, think like, well, I have a huge savings program. I have a huge savings account. My savings account is going to help me. I'm going to just pay for that. A follow-up question that would be, do you want to use your money? I mean, I know you have kids, grandkids, you want to go on vacation. Surely you want to leave an inheritance. Do you want to use that money do you want to deplete that account to pay for cancer insurance? Or would you rather have like a company come in and pay for your cancer treatment? So that's a follow-up question to that. Another question, how do you plan on recovering if you experience a fall or an accident? So many of them will say their spouse, their grandkids. Favorite follow-up question is, well, do they know that? Like, don't they have a job? Or like, how are they gonna be compensated for doing that? Are you gonna plan on asking follow-up questions there? Are you familiar with how Medicare works when you leave the hospital? That's one, because people are just like, well, it keeps paying for a lot of my stuff. Not every time. Are you familiar with that? Or a favorite one is to kind of evoke more emotions are going to be things like, have you had a family member experience blank? Have you ever had a family member that had to go to the nursing home? What was that like for them? What was that like? What was that strain on your family? Have you ever had a neighbor that was recovering in the hospital? Like, did you have to go take care of their cat, their dog, their plants? Like, what was that like for your neighbor? So asking questions about, have you had somebody experience insert risk?
Absolutely. Insert risk or even just asking about experiences they've had. You're going to ask about their family history. Not impossible, presumably, if we're talking to folks, in the 65 to 70 range, odds are they may have lost one or both of their parents by now. Asking what happened to them can be really important. One, because it can point to, potential genetic factors or other predisposed conditions they might have,
Right.
and it also is going to get them to tell that story and talk a little bit about what it was like. And maybe it was a heart attack and
Yeah.
dad passed in the night, or maybe it was a long drawn out illness.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of value in getting them to tell that story because it's going to remind them and it's going to make the solutions you present really easy. But I think the error I see a lot of agents make is they oversell the problem and don't leave enough time for the solution.
That's such a good point. I think that's what I'm saying when I'm saying like it's really easy to get lost in the stories and it's really
Yep.
easy to like lose control of the situation. Such a good reminder.
Mhm.
Don't spend so much time on the problem that you're not getting to the solution. I think what storytelling does from a consumer base is it makes it real. Like
Yeah.
no one thinks that they're going to get diagnosed with cancer, and people think like, well, if that happens, like they haven't even allowed themselves
Yeah.
to go down that path unless they've been diagnosed in the past, right? So whenever they tell a story of somebody that they know, that they saw it happen to, saw that their lack of preparedness, telling them that story makes it a really real scenario.
Yeah.
And asking those detailed questions. So I know we're coming up towards the end of Medicare Cafe. I just wanted to leave us with a couple tips as whenever you're in your fact finding, whether you do the form or you do the conversation method of fact finding. Number one, your pre-appointment or the warm-up, depending on, and again, we keep mentioning the 8-step selling process. Medicare Cafe did an episode on that, I believe, a month or two ago. So if you're interested in, like, they keep talking about this 8-step selling process.
Yeah.
Go back, look at it, look at the archives of Medicare Cafe, Our Lives. There is an episode on there, and watch that, get caught up. But what you should be doing in the warm-up or the pre-appointment appointment part is going to be setting the expectations of the types of questions you're going to be asking, so that whenever you do ask height and weight, like when you are asking financial situations, when you let them know in your warm-up, again, my warm-up is always similar to Chalen. Again, thank you so much, Chalen, for meeting with me today. I am a very holistic agent. I tell my clients that if you're working with me, you're going to know your risks. The solution may not always be in insurance, but I at least want to make sure you're educated about your risk. For me to know holistically what your package should look like, I'm going to ask a lot of questions. Some is going to be related to your health, some's going to be related to your family, some's going to be related to finances. I just want you to know, so when I ask these questions, it makes sense and you know the exact reason why I'm asking them. I'm asking it so I can do my job. So when you say things like that, and then the next question is, how much money do you have in your bank account right now? Which is not the way you'll ask it, but a question to know their financial situation. They're already prepped for that, and their guard's already been kind of taken down. So setting the expectations of the type of questions you're going to ask can really help bring down some of those walls they may have built.
Absolutely, it can. I think another really important thing to ask during your fact-finding process is, for lack of a better word, who are the other stakeholders? Who is in that client's life
Oh, such a
that
good point.
might second guess you?
Who's the real
Do they
decision
have
maker?
a POA? Do they have a financial advisor? How involved are their spouse, their kids, their neighbor, whoever it is? Who's the person that's going to second guess what you present? Because
Yeah.
there's always somebody.
Somebody is
There's
absolutely.
always somebody. Maybe it's Betty from Red Hatters, or maybe it's Joe down at the coffee shop, like we mentioned. Someone's going to second guess the advice you give them.
Kids.
Kids is a big one.
Like, my
Kids
mom's
is
on
such a big
Medicare.
one.
Why did you give her a dental insurance? Why did you
Yes.
because they don't know, and they're
Yeah.
so protective of their parents. They're the first ones to have an opinion about
Yep.
how they're spending their money.
And there's no reason not to get them involved.
It's great.
If the clients
great
want them,
point,
there's no
Chalen.
reason not to get them involved.
The third tip, because that's an excellent second tip. The third tip I have, it seems like a does statement, but so many CRMs are not set up for this. Keep the notes. I don't care, if what the stories they have, if you're finding out about their cousin's dog walker's best friend, I don't care. Put everything into a CRM. And yes, you need to have the information in there about their previous coverage, health information, things like that. But the things that you're finding out in that fact-finding portion will help you in future appointments, because when you can bring up things like, oh, they were getting ready to go on a trip, or they just got a new puppy, things that doesn't seem like it would belong in a sales CRM because it has nothing to do with the insurance. But when you're finding out that information and you follow up with them, it builds that relationship because people feel heard, they feel remembered, and it makes them feel like they're in a friendship versus just a client-agent relationship. And people prefer to work with their friends, and they refer their friends. So put all information in a CRM. And if your CRM isn't set up to handle just general notes about your client that isn't related to a policy or isn't related to health, then I'd recommend finding a better CRM, because that's a CRM is called a client relationship management tool. You need to make sure you put all aspects of your client in there to manage that relationship.
Yeah,
That seems silly.
Well, and when clients tell you those stories, you may not always catch it on the first glance
Yeah.
during that appointment, but every story they tell is going to uncover something that's important to them.
Yeah.
If you go back and listen to the way they tell a story, it's some, you talked about philosophy earlier. Some philosopher or something like that was like, the reason like our emotions are so hard to handle sometimes are because there is no one who can tell a sadder story to us than ourselves.
Oh, so true.
And if we listen to how clients tell these stories, if you ask them to tell the story of a family member or a friend or someone they know that something happened to, they're going to emphasize the parts that impacted them the most.
Such a great point.
If they tell a story about someone who had a long convalescence or needed care at home, and they don't mention the fact that that person's kid had to quit their job to take care of them, that's maybe not something that's so important to them. But if they spend a lot of time emphasizing that, like the things they emphasize are going to tell you what they're worried about.
That's such a great point, Chalen. Such a great point. So making sure you're keeping note of all of that. We talk about like AI note taking capabilities and things like that. Be very, very careful when you're using AI to take notes, using things like ChatGPT, or they have these other note taking things, because it can be non-HIPAA compliant. The only one, and I know there's probably more, but the one that I can speak to is Integrity Connect. Their Ask Integrity, their AI technology is a closed loop technology. So you can listen to phone calls about things like date of birth, Medicare information, medications, health information. If you're doing that on a non-closed loop AI, that's a HIPAA violation. So make sure you're asking those questions if you're going to do any type of recording, AI recording, or AI note taking. It must be on closed loop. Ask Integrity within Integrity Connect is a closed loop AI system. So just be careful compliance-wise on that. That is what we have for you guys today.
Video
Hopefully,
games.
I will get into the video games. Before I do, if you guys do have any questions on the fact finding, we'll do more, kind of digging more into some additional sales training. We'll dig more into the 8-step selling process. But fact finding is something that I think it's so simplified, yet it's so simplified to a point where it's detrimental to our clients. And so wanting to make sure we are asking the right questions and whatnot. So keep that in mind. I just got a text from somebody that said they just took a picture of mine and Clayton's thumbnail from last week. She's like, I thought you shaved your head. No, I just had a very tight ponytail and will not be making that mistake again, apparently. I love it. Here is, okay, we're done with fact finding. If you just want to just think of live thoughts brought to you by Olivia, let me know.
I have that one written down.
Okay, Game Brain. So here's what happened. My son is 5 years old. He just discovered like a year ago that it's the Switch. And he loves watching YouTube videos of different people playing video games on the Switch. One of the games that he became obsessed with, he got it for Christmas this year, is this game called Hello Neighbor. Familiar with Hello Neighbor?
I'm not.
It's a very archaic, like a startup company looking game. He's obsessed with it. So here's the important part of the story. The way that the story works is that your job is to actually break into this guy's house because he's kidnapped children. Probably not age appropriate for my 5-year-old, but this is a non-judging moment. I'm being vulnerable. He's supposed to break into this guy's house, and you're supposed to find different keys, solve different puzzles, and break in to try to free or rescue the kids in his basement. So if you get caught by this guy, and he's like awake the whole time, and sometimes if he's in the same room, he'll chase you. You got to run back to your side of the house, and that's like the ultimate thing. You just got to do this and before he catches you. When he catches you, nothing bad happens. You just end up waking back up at your house. Like there isn't like a set of like you can lose so many lives. It's just a recurring nightmare. There's not quite literally. There's not like you can do this 5 times and then the game's done. Like you don't have it literally. So my son loves whenever I play this game with him. So we're playing this together. And the way that I play is so different than how he plays. And I learned from him that if you don't take chances or if you reserve anything when you're trying to succeed, you have nothing in reserves. If you really believe you're going to do it, you got to go for it. I will tell you this. That kid beat my butt in this game. I was too worried about where was the neighbor? Am I going to get caught? I can't go in that room because he's around the corner. Why was that stress about it? A, it's a video game. Olivia, calm down. It ain't that deep. 2, all that was going to happen was that I was going to just regenerate next door. That's the worst that was going to happen. But my decision making was to play defense. I was more worried about reserving what I had. I was more worried about getting caught than I was about progress. And I think so many of us in business can be the same way. We don't want to quit our job. We're going to try this insurance thing out. We don't want to quit our job because what if it doesn't work out? Or we're going to try this new marketing technique. We don't want to do too much of it because what if it doesn't work out? Like there's something like there's intelligence in decision making, but it's also like if you're spending so much time playing defense and just like avoiding, like especially with the turmoil is a strong word, with what our company or what the industry is doing and these weird wonky commission things. So many people are worried about playing defense that we aren't doing the things we need to do to truly invest in our business. And if we're not willing to just kind of give it our all and like go on the offense, then we're not going to succeed doing this. So I don't know that the two quite line up A to A, but I was just like, my kid's going to be president of something incredible one day because he says, I'm going to make this work either way. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, absolutely. Our doubts are traitors and make us lose the good we oft might win by fearing to attempt.
Like saving children out of that guy's basement.
Well, that's Shakespeare, but same.
I bet he had the same thought.
No, that popped up in my feed the other day, and it seemed apropos for.
It's such a mindset. It's such a mindset of like, one, having confidence. I'm gonna do it, and if I don't, who cares? I'll do it again. Like there's just this like relentless. It's going to work. There isn't an alternative. It's gonna work. It's gonna get done. It might go crazy in some between now and then, but it's gonna get done either way.
Yep.
And I just thought that was like, man, kid, like honestly, stop playing the video games because now we're having nightmares. But still, but I learned something valuable along the way. Guys, any questions? I play that game. Susie plays Hello Neighbor. Susie, you're an adult. My son's 5. Please don't judge my parenting choices. But still, like it just, that to me was just like he kicked my ass because I was so worried about if I get caught. And my son was just like, okay, so then what? I'm like, you're right, dude.
Absolutely right.
Chalen, thank you for joining me on today's episode. We'll do some more sales trainings, more conversations around that, but just a lot of fun. Thank you guys for indulging us. Yeah. Happy 10 years to Medicare Cafe. Like and subscribe. Ring that bell. God, or circa 2013. Until next time, y'all, have fun.
Make money.
And give impeccable service. Nailed it. Thanks.